Alrighty, so as we are approach MLS Cup 2022, I thought I'm gonna do a video or two video talk about the finalists for this season and talk about how they were able to make it to MLS Cup, because as the old saying goes, making it to the dance is definitely not easy. There's going to be some ups and downs that you have to face when you get to MLS Cup, and certainly that's the case for the Philadelphia Union. I mean, as much as I know there was a lot of expectation that this is the season that they have a chance to make it to MLS Cup, they definitely had suffered their ups and downs, especially in the first half of the season. Though they did finish first in the Eastern Conference with a 19-10-5 record and finished with 67 points. They scored 72 goals, which I believe that's the most that any team has scored. Again, all that has to do with the fact that they were a free scoring team in the second half of the season, and they gave up 26 goals, which was by far the fewest that any team has had, and had a goal differential of plus 46. And again, early on, it looked like they were going to be a team that's going to compete for MLS Cup, because after they drew 1-1 against Minnesota in a game where, I remember that was a game where I know the Union didn't play well in that one, but that's kind of the case with a lot of teams in the first game of the season. I mean, there's so much unknown in the first game of the season. It does take a while for even some of the best teams to kind of get going. And the Union, they didn't play well in that one, but at least they got a draw out of that one. But then after that, they were able to win 2-1 against Montreal, then won 2-0 against the San Jose Earthquakes, then won 2-0 on the road against NYCFC before doing the same thing to Charlotte FC on April 2nd, and then they of course won 1-0 against the Columbus Crew, and they were 5-0-1, and they were at the top of the Eastern Conference. And again, a lot of people have said that, yep, this is a team that not only is going to potentially win MLS Cup, but they look like they're a supporter shield kind of contending of a team. And then it kind of fall apart, because their 5-game winning streak came to an end in the hands of TFC on the road 2-1, and then they kind of become Nashville SC of last season. They started to draw a ton of games, starting with a 1-1 draw against Montreal at home, a 1-1 draw on the road against Nashville, a thrilling 2-2 draw against LAFC in a game that we'll see in a couple of days for for one of these teams to lift the trophy for their first time in franchise history. And I think they even said back in May that this was going to be a preview of MLS Cup. I mean, anytime when I've said that, I usually don't see it kind of materialize, but yeah, that was a game where I remember it was a very thrilling game between both of these teams, and that, again, I hope that we maybe will see something similar to that in MLS Cup, even though I know in MLS Cup you're going to have a different kind of atmosphere and just kind of different circumstances compared to that one we saw back in May 7th. But again, it was a draw, and they came up with three straight draw and have now gone winless in the last 4 games after winning 5 out of the first 6 and in a 5-game winning streak. And then they, of course, in the U.S. Open Cup lose to eventual winner Orlando City 2-1 before it's another 1-1 draw against the New York Red Bulls and a 0-0 draw against Inter Miami. So what? That's now 5 straight times that they, of course, draw games. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Getting draws isn't always the worst thing, but it does not help in terms of your chances of moving up in the standings. And at that point, the Union, there were a couple of teams that have already been passed, and because of them drawing just so many games. And one thing that was kind of unthinkable, if you think about what happened near the end of the season for the Union, was that this team really struggled in terms of scoring goals and really kind of get into second gears. Like, this is a team that I think back then, this was a team that knows how to score a goal early, but they just never able to hit that second gear and able to get going. And again, little do we know that in the second half of the season, that problem basically was solved in a big way. But then they got a much-needed 2-0 win against the Portland Timbers, and you're thinking maybe things are going to turn around, right? Well, no, because then they got a 1-1 draw against New England, which wasn't necessarily the worst draw, because back then the Revs were still fought as a team that looked like it shaked off the CCL kind of jitters, and that they look like they're back on track. And then they got a hard-fought 1-1 draw against FC Cincinnati, aka the Philly Union Derby, as they were playing against pretty much their former head coach, and pretty much, as some people say, Union West. But after that, they got a 2-1 win against NYCFC before they did lose 1-0 against the Chicago Fire, and they got a 0-0 draw against Columbus. So up to that point, they have won like 2 out of what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. They've only won 2 out of their last 13 games. It was not a great time to be a Union fan, and you know how much they still struggle in terms of goal scoring. And then this is where things took a big turn, and this is where things really started to get not only getting back on track for the Union, but also this is where they started to look like an MLS Cup contender again, because in a game against DC United, they put up a 7 spot, blowing out DC United 7-0, and it won't be the last time that they would be a buzzsaw of a team at home. They then won 2-1 on the road against Miami before winning 2-1 against New England. Then they won 1-0 against Orlando City, and again, for a team that have only won 2 out of their last 12 games, 4 straight wins in a row, and now all of a sudden they look like they're back into contention of team in the Eastern Conference, and we're riding at a point where I think they even got themselves as high as the top of the Eastern Conference, and that hot streak can continue because they of course won 1-0 against Orlando City. They won 6-0 against the Houston Dynamo, and their winning streak, which at that point was at 5 games, came to an end in the hands of another Union derby against Union West. That is FC Cincinnati 3-1 in a game where I mentioned that was probably the best game that Cincinnati has ever played in their franchise history. And the Union, I didn't think they played badly in that game, but they just ran into a team that clearly wants it more, and that was the case. But the good news for the Union, they shake that off by winning 4-1 against Chicago, and then they of course did lose to FC Dallas in a team that, Dallas at that point looked like they also were turning around their season, in a team that have been tough to beat at home. So that necessarily wasn't actually a bad loss on that, especially it came off of a short week. But then they followed that by winning 6-0 against DC United, and then winning 6-0 against the Colorado Rapids. And again, this is when we really started to see this team being a free scoring team, and guys like Julian Carranza was scoring hat trick, Daniel Gastek was scoring every single games again. I mean, he of course carried the team in the beginning of the season, but in the latter part of the season, alongside with Michael Root, this was a team that went from a team that looked like they were having a lot of issue in terms of scoring to a team that somehow in some way they now are becoming a free scoring team. And it's, I don't think it's really any tactical kind of thing that Jim Curran decided to change. It's just the fact that I think that's just kind of how it is in terms of the mentality, and how, when you're in form, you're going to be informed, but when you're not in form and you're kind of in a funk, that's what the Union was in the first half of the season. Because as soon as you started to see them scoring a bunch of goals and realize that, hey, we have the talent, and we can definitely showcase that, that's when they kind of becoming an unstoppable force. They then win 4-1 against Atlanta United before winning 2-0 against the New York Red Bulls. Again, they were just sizzling hot up to that point. Then they won 5-1 against Orlando City, because again, they were an absolute buzzsaw of a team, and that, again, any team that of course faced them, if you give up an early goal and you give up another goal to the Union, yeah, it's game over for you. You're probably going to hope that they don't put in like a 6 spot against you. Though they did get a 0-0 draw against Atlanta United in a game where they were outplayed by Atlanta, and that was an Atlanta team that was desperate in terms of getting points. But hey, that's kind of something that you need to do sometimes. When you're outplayed, you can still get a point out of that. And especially, that was also a game where Andre Blake just kind of announced himself as the reason why he's going to win goalkeeper of the year, because we've seen it so many times during his career for the Union, stealing points for the Union, and he clearly did that in that game against Atlanta United. Stood on its head, but unfortunately it was followed by a bad performance where they lost 4-0 against Charlotte FC, and I think that was probably the worst performance that the Union has had this season. They were completely outplayed by Charlotte, and this is also kind of where maybe there were some people that are kind of doubting the fact that maybe the Union kind of peaked a little bit too soon. I mean, we've seen it before where, when you of course go on a hot streak, but then you maybe cooled off when crunch time comes, and that when playoff time is about to begin. Yeah, that could be a little bit concerned, but all that was dust aside, because they then win 4-0 against Toronto FC on this decision day. And keep in mind, up to that point, they had nothing to play for. They unfortunately did see LAFC win the Supporters Shield, and that, those last 2 games kind of cost them any chance of winning the Supporters Shield. But still, they had nothing to play for, and you're thinking, well, maybe they can just take a little relax. Nope, they won 4-0 against CFC. Remind everybody why they are an MLS Cup contender, and that that little blip that they had in the last 2 games was all but just a blip. But as we head into the playoffs again, the first round matchup that they face, it was not a favorable one because they have to play against FC Cincinnati, a team that they just have not been able to figure out this season. And not to mention, as I said, there's a reason why FC Cincinnati play very well against the Union. There's a lot of former player from that Cincinnati team that used to play for the Union. And oh, by the way, that head coach for FC Cincinnati, that is Pat Nolan, used to be under the direction of Jim Kern, and that it was kind of just a master versus kind of the students in that one. And that, yeah, I mean, up to that point it looked like the student was able to get the best out of the master, but the Union, they grind out a big victory in that one. I mean, it was not an easy game whatsoever, and FC Cincinnati really challenged them a lot and gave them all that they can handle. But in the end, it was crucial for the Union to, of course, move on into that game, because again, it was not a favorable matchup, and I thought that it could be lights out if that, of course, is the case. And then in the next game, it was also a matchup where, I mean, I think this was a little bit more favorable because they're playing against NYCFC and they know that revenge is on a dish. But sometimes, when you are too focused on revenge, you forgot that, yeah, the ultimate goal is still, of course, reach MLS Cup, and you don't want to get revenge too much in your heads where you don't perform at your best. And for a while, it looked like that was maybe the case, at least in the middle part of that game. And then when NYCFC got that opening goal, I thought, this does not look good for the Union, because it was up to that point, it was looking like a game that basically one goal was going to be enough to win the game. But then the Union remember that, yeah, they are a team that scored 72 goals this season. And why they score 72 goals is because once they're able to score a goal and score another, they become a bit of a buzzsaw. And that is exactly what they did in that one against NYCFC. They got a goal back, albeit it was a gift from NYCFC. But they got a go back and able to score a second one in just 2 minutes. And when that happened, you knew the Union was going to win. Like, you knew that this is like the Union that we saw in the second half of the season. When they are able to score quickly, they hit into high gear. They made it 3-1 and could have made it 4-1 at some point in the latter part of this game. But yeah, in the end, the Union are able to win that one, got their revenge, and now reach the promised land of making their first ever MLS Cup. And as I'll mention later in the LAFC video, it's going to be interesting to see will they have enough of the talent to do so, because again, most of the wins that they have where it hasn't really came close has come from home, and we know that they are a team that is absolutely untouchable at home. Like, this team has, I think, now the record for the most consecutive home win in MLS history. I know they went unbeaten this season at home, but it feels like it has happened again with them just winning almost every single game, but now have to go on the road, a place that, on the road this season, the Union, there's been times that they've been doing good, but then there's also times where we saw the last two road games that they had a little bit trouble in terms of that, and especially facing against another team that is LAFC, that has the weapons that they have. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting kind of matchup. But other than that, I think it's going to be a great matchup. Again, going back to what I said earlier in the video, back in that May 7th matchup, that was a matchup that I was hoping that, we'll see an MLS Cup between both of these teams again, because of how high power and there's so much quality between both of them, and we get a chance to do so in just a couple of days. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video? And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.